Welcome back to the Elise Sarkov podcast, where we help women in perimenopause and menopause thrive unapologetically from the inside out. All right, today I'm going to dig into something that you're probably struggling with. And maybe this is one of the very first signs that you think, something feels different or off for me. And that is your sleep. So sleep in perimenopause, what happens? Why does it change? And what do you do about it? Let's jump in. All right, I'm going to try to keep this as simple as possible in true FFWE style. Is I want to make sure that you have enough information that you understand what's happening, but not too much information where you start to hyper obsess over it or feel like you have to go and make all these changes and do all these things that are going to cost you a lot of money in supplementation. Okay. So let's just back up a little bit. What is happening right now with your sleep? You might have one of two areas that you're really struggling with. It could be falling asleep. So you might feel like you are so tired. And at the end of the day, you just want to hit that pillow and crash. But the second you fall to your pillow, it's like everything and anything that you've ever thought of over the last 24 hours or 24 years just comes spiraling back into your brain and you cannot shut it down. Okay. So that's kind of like one area. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. And then the next, which we'll get into after, is what I struggle a lot with and what I know a lot of our ladies struggle a lot with too, which is at 2 or 3 a.m. wake up where you just feel like you could start your day. Right. And it might take you an hour or two to fall back to sleep. You might not fall back to sleep at all. I know for me and for some of our coaches on our team, we share, been up since 3:30 today. It's a 3:30 morning and it really sucks. And it just feels like you're never going to sleep again. And I will say this is what really pushed me to HRT back in June of 2024 when my sleep got really disrupted. In fact, it started in May. So almost a year ago, I started noticing that every single night I was just up and I couldn't fall back to sleep. And typically experience this closer to my period, but this was 8 straight weeks where I just wasn't sleeping anymore. And I thought, okay, this is when I started being like, I think it's time for some support. So let's go to the first one, like I said. So this feeling of hitting the pillow and you just cannot stop thinking, so you can't fall asleep. We call this the tired but wired feeling. So this is for the woman in perimenopause who is like go, go, go throughout the day, the high functioning female. You think of this as like you were always juggling a lot and you didn't think it was a lot. And now it's all of a sudden feeling really heavy. Okay. So like you're juggling all these balls in the air and all of a sudden they're starting to fall. You're dropping them. You're just like, things just like shit just feels heavier than it's ever felt before. And so you are really tired. Like you feel like you could fall asleep at any given time. And you probably wake up in the morning thinking like, I cannot wait to get to sleep. You might cancel plans because you're like, I'm just so fucking tired. And then you get into bed and you're wired. All right. This is definitely looking at cortisol and adrenal dysfunction. So typically we're looking at that rise in cortisol happening and, that serotonin hormone not hitting you fast enough at night to get you to sleep. Your hormones are a little bit flipped. What do we do here? This is a great I want to say problem. I can't think of another word, but this is a great problem to experiments with adaptogens. So this is when you're going to be looking at those little helpers that are going to be added into your everyday that is going to naturally work with your body, with your physiology, with your hormones without causing really extreme side effects. So we're not talking medication here. So one of the top adaptogens that is recommended for this type of woman would be ashwagandha, rhodiola. Those are the two big ones. Now, I find that when I have a woman who's really struggling with that and we get them on ashwagandha, they do see a significant improvement in falling asleep. So it tends to help, but it doesn't happen overnight. You're going to have to experiment with it and just make sure that you're being consistent and that you take it every day. And you might start seeing that you fall asleep a lot faster and you're not that like wired feeling. The other thing I would recommend here would be supplementation on adrenal support. So depending where you are in the world, I know that for me in Canada, we've got some supplements that I really do love that help with that adrenal support. And then, if you're in the US, let's say, that's going to look a little bit different. So if you're interested in learning more about supplements that I recommend and supplements that I use, you can just go ahead and check the links below or shoot me a message on Instagram and I can do a whole other podcast on supplements. I just don't want you to feel like I'm selling this to you or that you need to be taking them. However, they can really help. And I personally do take them because I find that they really help me as well. Another really important one, it is not an adaptogen, but a supplement, is magnesium. If you're not already on magnesium, then this would be the time to start it. So when we look at what are the staples in perimenopause for women, magnesium is going to be the one that you see. It's so great for energy production to help with cell formulation. So lots of think of energy in each cell, but then also helping with that sleep. So if you haven't already done that, then I would recommend starting there and then potentially going into ashwagandha or rhodiola. I will say for me personally, I don't love rhodiola for me and my physiology, but I'll also say that I don't have as much of a problem falling asleep as I do staying asleep. And that brings me to problem, quote unquote, number 2. So that is that women like myself, like maybe you, and like a lot of women that I speak to who struggle with that 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning kind of wake up. So what is happening here? Typically speaking, if you can track, if you keep a journal by your bed and you just track the days of your cycle, if you're still cycling, and even if you have an IUD in, or if you had an ablation or anything like that, any reason for you to continuously be cycling right now, so you haven't hit menopause, then you're going to want to track this, because chances are as you get into your late luteal phase, so that time before your period, so think of after ovulation being midway through your cycle. So if you think of that second half of your cycle, and in the second half, you cut it in half again, that late second half, that late half is going to be where sleep is disrupted. Why? Because progesterone falls hard here. All right. So I know for me, before I started perimenopause, I would have every few months, I would have a sleepless night. And I knew it was hormones, because I knew that feeling of I cannot sleep and I can't fall back to sleep. And I felt almost anxious. And this is where I would joke with Albert, where I was like, oh my God. And this is where I would reconsider my life, right? It's I don't know what I want to do with my life. I don't know if we should still be married. Maybe I need to move to an island by myself. And then 2 days later, I get a period. And I'm like, oh, okay, never mind. So if you're in that category with me where you really feel like you're almost possessed before a period, and then that happens and you feel normal again, then you might realize that okay, shit changes as I hit that late luteal phase. So that is what's happening now in perimenopause. So if you think of perimenopause as one long cycle, that dip in progesterone towards the end is what perimenopause would feel like. And then day 1 of bleed, which would technically be no bleed, would be menopause. Okay. So that's kind of what that looks like. So when progesterone starts to fall and we have less stress protection, we have more anxiety, and our ability to handle stuff, including sleep, goes out the window. So if you are finding that you are consistently up between those hours of 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, then we're looking at one of 2 things. Likely is progesterone. So this is the first place that I will start is go get your labs tested and make sure that you're testing your sex hormones. Otherwise, we don't know what's going on. And number 2, it 100% can also be a stress response. So cortisol is happening a little bit earlier, that dawn effect that typically happens around 4:30, could be happening around 2:30, and it is waking you up. Literally, your blood sugars start to rise and be like, good morning, Elise, it's time to wake up, but it's getting confused and it's doing it too early in the morning because stress is dysregulated. So, but okay, this is where it might get confusing. So you might say to me, but Elise, I'm not more stressed. I don't understand. I've changed nothing. Aha, I get you, girl. The problem is that estrogen is also falling, and estrogen is protecting your stress resiliency. So you can't handle shit the same. So if your stress load was a 7 out of 10 and it was manageable, now at that same stress load at 7 out of 10, it's not going to feel manageable. And so that's going to affect your physiology. Your cortisol levels will go up, and that will then throw off progesterone. And that's why you keep waking up. Okay, so what do you do? There's a couple things. You can go to adaptogens. I really do like Vitex for women in perimenopause who are struggling with that progesterone and estrogen ratio. So perhaps progesterone's falling, so then estrogen gets really high, or there's just not enough progesterone. So estrogen is kind of at baseline, but then progesterone's super low. So either way, there's a huge difference in ratios, a huge standard of deviation, if you will. So a really great place to start here is with Vitex. So that will kind of even that out a little bit and try to help. And if you've tried that, then you're going to need to be on that for at least 2 cycles to see if it is working. So that's the first place I would start. And I'd recommend starting that while you get tested. Don't guess, my girl. This is a great time to talk to your doctor and say, I want to get I want my hormones tested. Okay, how do you do this? Because you're going to go to your doctor and you're going to say, I'm not feeling great, I'm not sleeping. And your doctor is going to say, well, I mean, you're still like, you're only 46, like you're not in menopause yet, you're fine. And they might not test your lab. So what do you say? So you're going to have to put on your big girl panties, pull them up, put on your big girl hat and walk in there and say, I need help figuring out my hormones right now. Can you help me? And then you shut up and you wait for your doctor to say yes or no. Chances are your doctor is going to say yes. And you can say, great, I really want to start with testing my progesterone because I'm really struggling for sleep. Now, if your doctor is going to push back and say, no, you don't need that, then what you need to do is talk symptoms with your doctor. And if you are a doctor listening, I'm not hating on doctors. I just know how to talk to them and they talk in symptoms. So you have to say, I wake up, I feel anxious, I, can't get back to sleep, my heart is racing. And those are the symptoms that doctor has to say, okay, let's figure that out and test it. All right. So that's where you're going to want to start. Now, if progesterone is something that we're looking at, which we are, then you're going to want to make sure that you are testing between days 19 and 21 of your cycle when progesterone starts to fall. So we don't want to be testing this when everything is like hunky-dory. So your doctor might push back and say, well, it doesn't matter when you test because it's going to look different. I know that we want it to look different at this time. Okay. So this is a really great time to get clinical with your cycle and know exactly where you fall so that you can go get the information that you need. All right. So from there, you might do really well with some progesterone. This might be a great time. This is where I started. I started with progesterone and testosterone actually, but this is a really great opportunity to consider HRT. Now, if you don't want HRT, that is fine. You don't have to. We have a lot of women that are not good candidates for HRT or who just choose not to, and that is totally fine. You can hear Rosie barking in the background. So we're also going to want to double down on sleep hygiene. And I do have a really great freebie on sleep hygiene. If that is something you want, go ahead and shoot me an email. I will link it below. And just let me know that you want that resource, sleep hygiene, and I will send this to you. But this is where it becomes super important to double down. Now, when I say sleep hygiene, you're probably like rolling your eyes and being like, oh my God, it sounds so simple. It's almost like too fluffy, right? But it's not, because again, remember, estrogen is also falling. So your ability to handle shit has changed. Whereas before you might have been like, go, 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 and then to go to bed, collapse, and you sleep. You can't do that anymore. Your body doesn't work like that. So getting that bedtime routine is super important. So really having that wind down, and I use that like an hour before. I say like I pull up my contacts out of my eyes, and once I pull my contacts out, I can't see as well. I do wear glasses, but I still don't see as well. So that's when I'm really off my phone. I'm off the gram. I'm off Slack for my team. Like I'm not really available anymore. And that kind of helps me wind down a little bit. So making sure that you do have that space. And if you've got kids at home, this is a great time to just kind of like chill out with them or go read a book or just do something kind of on your own. You're also going to want to make sure that you limit your screen time or your blue light exposure. So, if you are on your phone, you're going to want to make sure that you're, wearing blue light blockers or take breaks or just fucking shut that shit down, especially if you're someone who is highly sensitive. Then you're going to also make sure that when you get into bed, that you don't go into bed when you are completely exhausted, but when you're starting to get ready to fall asleep in a cool, dark place. I like to wear an eye mask. I started wearing an eye mask when Owen was born. I wore it. Actually, I started before. So like after kid 2, after Nate was born, I started wearing earplugs. So I just didn't want to hear my kids anymore while they were sleeping. So forget unplugging the monitor. I actually wore earplugs. So at some point then I also started wearing an eye mask. And I remember when I was in labor with Owen, I brought my eye mask to the hospital, knowing that like the hospital lights never turn off. So even by then I was like, yeah, I'm shutting down to the world. So, making sure it's nice and dark and the temperature is nice and cool, that's going to really help you fall asleep. It also helps that your meal timings are the same every single day. So you're like, what the fuck, Elise? You're talking about meal timing and sleep hygiene? I know. This helps with your circadian rhythms, which is going to help you fall asleep better. So if like every single day, it's like breakfast is here and breakfast is there, and then I skip lunch, your body doesn't know what the fuck is going on. So do yourself a solid and really help your circadian rhythms and your blood sugar by eating your meals at about the same time. It doesn't have to be like 7:01 or 7:20, but if you're like, I eat breakfast between 7 and 8, and I eat lunch 12 to 1, and then dinner's like 5 to 6, whatever it is, like try to keep that about the same, and you're going to really feel that that's going to help you. But I'd love to get you that sleep hygiene guide. I think it's going to really help. In terms of other types of supplements, so I personally started using one by Legion, which is called Lunar, and this is something that we talk a lot about in the functional space, which is so fucking amazing. This supplement has been really helpful for me. When I'm in my late luteal phase, I will double up on magnesium and take this, and it is like I am out cold for the whole night. And it feels so good when you get a good night's sleep when you're so used to not having it. So that is really good. There are other ones that I recommend as well. If you are in Canada or you cannot access Legion, then there are other ones that I really do recommend. Go ahead and contact me, and I will be happy to share that with you. However, I want you to understand that like all the supplements in the world are not going to help your shitty habits. So if you're someone who is like stressed beyond fuck, you spend no time with yourself, and the second your head hits the pillow, you think of all the shit you need to do. You can take all the supplements you want. That's not going to help anything. You need to sit in your shit throughout the day and process things. So if you're someone like me that doesn't have a lot of time to sit in your shit, this is a great time to journal. And you don't have to journal before bed, but you can journal in the morning, you can journal in the afternoon, but have another venue where you can get things out of your head and onto paper, especially if you're someone like me who, you know, I'm running a business, I'm running a family, I've got so many balls in the air. It's like, I'll lie down at night and think, fuck, I haven't booked Owen's bar mitzvah yet. I need to do that, but then I'll forget about it. And then I wake up thinking, oh, don't forget about it, right? So keeping that pen and paper handy or just having something that you can write on is going to really help as well. All right. I hope that this was helpful. If you are struggling with sleep, you are definitely not alone. And if you need more support, I will put all those links below. And hopefully this resonates with you. Shoot me a message and let me know if it helps. Of course, if you want to watch this, you can watch this on YouTube. And I will see you on the next one.